Before I show you some interesting traps in today's video, I'm so excited to announce to you guys that now you can get my complete E5 defense course either on my website kasperchess.com or on my membership page on Patreon. All the links are in the comment section down below. Guys, that's more than a course, more than anything I've ever done on YouTube. You see, it's one course that contains more than 4 different openings. So you will learn how to fight against the Italian game, how to punish the Ruy Lopez like a professional, how to beat the 3 knights opening, the 4 knights game, the delayed Ruy Lopez, the bishops opening, and also how to crush Gotham's favorite Vienna game. Not forgetting the Scotch Gambit, the Goring Gambit, etc. It's like a full bulletproof against the King's Pawn opening. Go and get that now. You won't regret, I promise. Now let's get into today's video. So before I show you some of the common traps that I want you guys to always avoid, let me show you 2 simple opening repertoires with white pieces that you can try in serious matches in classical chess. And the goal is to expose your opponent's king, not that crap of checkmating your opponents quickly. So first of all, you begin with pawn to e4, and then after e5 you play knight f3. Say black plays knight c6. This is when you go pawn to d4. So you are the first one to strike on the center, which is what I always advise my students to do. Even in my new e5 defense course, you guys, you need to get that. E takes d4 is by far the top played move, and it's up to you to play the Scotch Game with knight takes d4 or the Scotch Gambit with bishop c4. I love the Scotch Gambit because there are so many traps involved behind this move bishop c4. And so in your classical games, most of your opponents will be playing this move knight to f6 without even knowing what they are doing. So even though pawn to e5 is preferred, I guess most of your opponents will be prepared against this move. For example, if you go pawn to e5, the right move that black is supposed to play is pawn to d5 in this position, and this will just lead to an equal boring game. So instead of playing pawn to e5, just simply play castle short, asking black to take your e4 pawn, because that's not free, by the way. And you know, in the master's database, you will see that knight takes e4 is the top played move. This is what people play in real OTB matches, especially in tournaments. And now this is when you can simply go rook e1, pinning this knight to the king. The thing is, if black plays pawn to f5, now you can simply go bishop d5. Not knight takes d4 like what most people tell you on YouTube. Just go bishop d5, that's the best move. So the whole idea is to go knight g5, not taking on d4. So try this knight g5 and most of your opponents are going to be confused, even in classical chess, you guys. The thing is, if black takes on g5 with a knight, they are going to lose terribly after bishop takes g5. And yes, black can't castle short. Even if they play king f8, the move you can play here is queen h5, and there's a big problem on f7. How about exchanging queens? Then take on c6. If bc, you might win a free piece with check. So this is so effective, you guys, and I want you to try this in your serious games. If they don't take with the knight, and say they take with the bishop, once again, you can just go queen h5. See that the knight is still pinned to the king. And if they play pawn to g6, you simply take on g5. That's almost a free piece. If queen takes, you go bishop takes. And now you're just one move away from pinning black's knight. So if they play something like king f8 in this position, you simply go bishop h6, telling them to go back and win a free knight on the next move. So once again, after knight f3 and knight c6, you simply go pawn to d4, the Scotch Game, and if black takes, you go bishop c4, the Scotch Gambit, inviting knight f6. What did I say? You have an option to go pawn to e5, but black can easily equalize with a move pawn to d5, and the game will be equal and boring. So better castle short, giving black one more chance to take your free pawn on e4. And this is where you play rook e1. So we saw how bad pawn to f5 can be. So let's say, what if black tries to protect his knight with pawn to d5 while attacking our light squad bishop? Well, the move to surprise your opponent is this. Bishop takes d5. The thing is, after they take back with the queen, try to find the move in this position, of course, which is not winning, but equalizing and shocking at the same time. Let's go. Right, so nothing much. You are attacking your opponent's queen and also putting more pressure on the pinned knight on e4. black can't take our knight, so they better do something like queen a5, after which we can simply take on e4 with our knight, and we are one move away from mating, by the way. The last simple repertoire with white that I would love you guys to try in your classical games, especially in tournaments, is why you play knight g5 immediately after d4, pawn takes, bishop c4, and say knight f6. Knight g5 is a very interesting move which may take most of your opponents out of their prep. Say after they play pawn to d5, here you can just take, and this is kind of the fried liver attack to knight's defense. The thing is, if black plays the top played move knight takes d5, word of advice, never take on f7 due to queen e7 check, an intermediate move, and then black is gonna take that free knight of yours with dignity. So the best you can do here is castle short, and then black has to find this move knight e5 to protect his f7 pawn. Otherwise, moves like bishop e7, the top played move, can cost his game due to knight takes f7, now double attacking the queen and the rook on h8. If king takes, this is when you can go queen f3 check, the fried liver move, or even better queen h5 check, which invites pawn to g6, and then you go bishop takes d5 check. Black can't play king f8 due to bishop h6 check. Look at all these threats. If king e8, now you retreat your queen back to f3, intending to do this. And I've seen people playing rook f8, but you know what? You can just take on c6 as well, and after pawn takes, you take a second free pawn. You guys, this is simple but very effective. And this is how you surprise most of your opponents in classical chess or in those tournaments. Simple chess, but very effective. Now, one more time, we saw what happened if black plays knight f6, you just go knight g5, right? Or castle short, the move that we looked at in the previous repertoire. So what if black plays bishop c5? Well, once again, you can try this move, knight g5. The thing is, there is no good way for black to defend the f7 pawn, so they are going to be forced to play knight h6 in this position. I'm not saying you are winning anytime soon, but the whole idea is to expose your opponent's king like this after queen h5 check. Don't worry about d6. You can just go queen c4 check, and after bishop e6, you bring back your queen on e2. Imagine you're having this position in the tournament. It won't be easy for your opponent to see all these things. So that's f4, f5 after you castle short, and this is going to be disaster and very simple to play. Right, now allow me to show you some of the most common traps that you must avoid when you're playing black against the Scotch Gambit. Let's go. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and pawn to d4. So the main move is e takes d4, and here is where the Scotch game can transpose into the Scotch Gambit. If white doesn't take on d4 with his knight, but instead play bishop c4. Now, before I show you the real stuff, here is what most black players play against the Scotch Gambit, e.g. the top played move knight f6. First of all, this invites e5, so you can see already white is putting pressure on black very early in the opening stage, which makes a lot of people to lose. E.g. if you play knight g4, the second most played move, white can even sacrifice his light squared bishop, making you lose your right to castle, after which they go knight g5 check, and after king g8, they don't even have to take your undefended knight right away. They can go queen f3 as if they want to mate on f7, and look at this. Knight g takes e5 is the top played move which hangs mate in 2. So this is one of the ways in which you can lose if you are not prepared against the Scotch Gambit. And let me show you what else black players do against the Scotch Gambit. Instead of going right away knight to f6, black players also go bishop c5. But white has this little trap where they go pawn to c3 so that if you take, they can sacrifice their bishop, again making you lose your right to castle and win your dark squared bishop on the next move. Another way they can play this is after bishop c5, instead of playing pawn to c3, they go knight g5 once again, as if they want to play the fried liver attack. I mean, I also covered this line in my Sarat variation video, where white can take on f7 once again, making you lose the right to castle, after which they give you check and win your dark squared bishop on the next move. So there is some theory that you need to know. For example, one of my old tournament games went as follows. After my opponent played bishop c4, I just blazed out bishop e7. I just wanted to develop my king's knight and castle short, then start playing chess. So my opponent played pawn to c3, and there's a line in the Scotch game where we don't take on c3 but just push our pawn forward, which turned out to be a mistake in this particular position because of queen b3. And you can already see that I was already struggling just in the opening stage. There was nothing I could do to save my f7 pawn. I tried knight a5. My opponent took the free pawn on f7 with check. I played king f8, and now queen a4 came. After I captured the bishop, my opponent took the knight, and now in this position I had to find the only equalizing move, pawn to d5. But this was a classical tournament, you guys, and I had zero knowledge about the Scotch game or the Scotch Gambit. All that I knew was chess, e4, e5, that's all. So I played pawn to d6, which gave my opponent a huge advantage, and he went on to beat me like hell. I learned this line the hard way, which is why I don't want this to happen to you guys. Other lines to be aware of that may happen in the Scotch are as follows. Say after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and pawn to d4, and e takes d4. Sometimes the game may transpose back to the deuce gambit or the Goring Gambit. In fact, let's look at the famous Goring Gambit trap, which begins with pawn to c3. What white wants is for you to go d5 so that they can take, and after you take back with your queen, they then take on d4 with their pawn, allowing you to pin their knight on f3 like this. This is a well common trap and you guys must know it. The thing is, after bishop e2, you may think this pawn on d4 is a free pawn, or will be a free pawn after bishop takes f3 and bishop takes. Never should you take on d4 in this Goring Gambit, because if you take thinking you just want a free pawn, white has this intermediate move, bishop takes c6 check. So after bc, white will just win your free queen. So this is one common trap to know in the Scotch game, Goring Gambit. Another funny line that I have seen most people playing nowadays is this one that goes as follows. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, d4. Then after e takes d4, white plays knight g5. So the idea is they want to sacrifice their knight on f7 after you play h6. If you want to be safe, you can just go ahead and play bishop e7, doing everything that you do in the Paris defense that I just showed you. But you can also allow them to sacrifice their knight on f7 if you are prepared, because this is already winning for you as black. After knight takes, you can just take back with your king. So let me show you what white is trying to do here. They want to mate you in 6 moves, beginning with bishop c4 check. See, all these highlighted moves in red are blunders. For example, king e8 will lead to mate in 6 after queen h5 check. And there's little that you can do from here. I don't even want to cover anything. So the move to remember, instead of going back or playing king e7, the move to remember whenever you come across this rubbish is king g6. Once you play this, white won't have queen h5 check, and you'll be able to hide your king on h7 without any problems. For example, the game may continue as follows. Pawn to h4, now you go king h7, your king is very safe, and after pawn to e5, maybe they want to play bishop d3 check, but you can just play pawn to d5, and whatever they do, you have pawn to e6, and this is just game over. You are very safe. The next thing you want to do is to, start exchanging bigger pieces, but not pawns, since you are up a piece. So these are just some funny, useless traps to, keep in mind that most Scotch Gambit players want to try on you. Let me know what you think in the comment section, and remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, because that's what encourages me to keep on making more wonderful videos just like this one. And my e5 defense course is still on promo, and I just finished organizing the master PGN to make it easier for you guys to follow. So be sure to check it out on my channel or on my membership page that's on Patreon. You can also find it there. Right, thank you for watching this video. Until next time, let me know what you think about this game for today.